Hey everyone, I'm Christine and welcome back to Christine's Culinary Quest. This last week, one of the videos reached 100 views for the first time and actually is surpassing 100 views already. And we've gotten more than 40 subscribers now. So thanks to you guys who are watching these videos again and again, sharing them, joining recently. I really appreciate it. But enough of that, right? On to why you're really here. This week's recipe and that mountain of containers behind me that's enough to feed a small army. So I got curious about foods from other countries again recently and was doing research, looking for a new recipe to try, and found a blog about Russian borscht. After hearing how healthy it was, I had to look into it, which I did, and I was surprised by a few things that I learned. Borscht isn't just one soup, like zuppa toscana. It's a family of soups that are all based off of the original borscht, which is said to be made from pickled hogsweed. There's no hard and fast rules when it comes to borscht. So many countries, regions, and families have created their own versions that it's hard to tell what makes something a borscht, and everyone will tell you a different opinion on what makes up a true borscht. Borscht can be made with or without beans, meat, beets, or any particular ingredient. Most people seem to agree that it's a brothy soup that isn't thickened like chowder or pureed like bisque, but even then, there are exceptions in personal recipes. Borscht isn't hard to make. It merely takes a longer period of time and simmering to make a borscht with an authentic depth of flavor. There are places you can cut down on the time you'll need for this recipe though, and I'll point those out as we go through the steps. Finally, as stated before, borscht is a family of soups, not simply one particular soup recipe. That's why today I'll be showing you how to make the borscht you probably think of when you hear the word borscht, if you even know what to picture at all. Classic red Russian beef and beet borscht. You don't have to use beef for this recipe. Any meat will do. Beef is simply the traditional choice for Russian borscht. I'll go through the steps for how to use all of the raw, fresh versions of the ingredients, but if you plan to use pre-cut, canned, or jarred ingredients for your vegetables, or if you just want to skip all of the explanation of the prep and go straight to the recap of all of the steps, you can go ahead and skip to this part of the video. Also, remember, borscht is a great recipe that tastes even better after it sits overnight. So if you plan to serve it at an event, something like that, go ahead and make it the night before you plan to serve it if you can, instead of right beforehand. It's also a great recipe for meal preps because it will last up to a week in the fridge. It's good hot or cold, and the flavor will continue to intensify throughout the week as it sits in your container. The first thing to know is that beets are not the key in Russian borscht. The real key here is actually the stock. You can of course use store-bought stock from the store, but for a more powerful depth and layering of flavor, you really need to put beef soup pieces, or beef on the bone, in the bottom of a pot and simmer them in water over time. Be sure to lay down a few tablespoons of olive oil in the bottom of your pot, salt both sides of your beef pieces, and cut any membranes around the edges so they don't curl as they heat and tighten the meat before adding them to your pot. We want it to stay loose so it'll come out nice and tender. You can add more meats here to increase the complexity of the flavor. Multiple meats are actually encouraged in borscht for exactly that reason. I'm going to be adding 2 packages of pork sausage, but you can use any meat that you want, pork, chicken, you name it. Once all your meat is in your pot, add water to the pot until the meat and bones are fully covered, and add 4 to 5 bay leaves. At this point, bring the pot to a boil and skim off the foam that accumulates, just like you saw in the makluba video a few weeks ago. If you don't remember the technique, there's a link right here for you to click and refresh your memory, but really all you need to do is periodically scoop the foam off the top as the beef simmers. You'll need to let your beef simmer in the water to create a soup stock for at least 30 minutes, though ideally you would wait until your meat is at least tender enough that it falls apart as you try to pull it out of your pot. If you have time, you can simmer it for even longer than that, like I'll be doing, for 5 to 6 hours. But you can get by with just 30 minutes of simmering if you need to save time. While we let the meat simmer, let's go ahead and prep all of our other ingredients. Go ahead and dice 1 sweet onion, 1 to 2 large, or 3 to 4 small potatoes, any kind will do, and 2 to 6 stalks of celery, depending on your preferred balance with the carrots and onion. Be sure to put your potatoes in a bowl and cover them with water so they don't brown before it's time to use them. You'll also need to prep 3 large or 8 small beets and 2 to 3 large carrots by either dicing them or grating them with the large holes on a grater or with a food processor. You'll need to bake your beets at 375 for 30 to 60 minutes, or until you can stab a fork easily into your beets to get them soft enough to dice or grate. Be sure to use gloves or put a Ziploc bag over your hand while you grate beets, or your hand will get red all over. It's fairly easy to wash off, but it looks pretty gruesome, right? Tell me this doesn't look like something out of a horror film. I need to remember to tell my special effects friends about how awesome beets can be for like a horror, gore, guts sort of look. Once your meat is at its preferred tenderness, or you've let it simmer for the minimum 30 minutes, turn the burner off and let the pot cool before removing or straining out the foam, cartilage, small and large bones, and the bay leaves from your stock. Now, put a pan on the stove and put a few tablespoons of olive oil in the pan before cooking your carrots, onion, and celery. If you need to use 2 pans for this step, feel free, but be sure to put a few tablespoons of oil in each pan to properly season and soften the ingredients. Be sure to generously add salt to each pan and stir sparingly while the carrot and celery soften and the onions go translucent and then brown. Then combine all 3 together and add either a small can of tomato sauce, 2 tablespoons of ketchup, or 2 peeled tomatoes and cook over low-medium heat for 15 to 20 minutes to concentrate the flavor. Now, place your soup stock with the meat added back in on the stove and add in the vegetables from your pan, as well as your prepped potatoes, beets, and cabbage. You can also add 1 tablespoon of garlic here if desired. At this point, check your stock and add salt and parsley to taste. You can also add vinegar at this point as well to add a nice sharp contrast to the sweet and earthy flavors of the meat, beets, carrots, and onions for even more depth of flavor. I added 1 cup to the pot, sprinkling a little in at a time and using tongs to help pull the ingredients at the bottom through to the top, since my pot is close to being full. Sprinkling it in a little at a time allows me to check and taste test the stock multiple times throughout the process. This is a good rule of thumb for seasoning soups and stocks regardless of the ingredient or ingredients you are adding for seasoning. So be sure to add your spices a little bit at a time so it's not too sweet, sour, or salty. Arrgh! When plating your bowl, ladle your thick, hearty soup into a bowl and top with a small dollop of sour cream, Greek yogurt, or mayonnaise, depending on your preferred topping. Then add parsley over the top for garnish. It makes for a pretty sight with that small dollop of white on top of your soup, but the purpose of your dollop is actually to be stirred into your soup along with the parsley and any other topping you add for garnish. Dill or crispy meats like bacon make great garnishes for borscht too. Now let's quickly recap all the steps and how to go through them using pre-prepped ingredients. All of the quantities are in the description below, and I'll speed this up to make it more amusing for those of you who have already seen all these steps before.
Add all your meat or beets and bay leaves and some boxed stock to your pan and bring the pot to a boil before having it simmer on low for a minimum of 30 minutes while you pan fry your carrots, celery, and onion. A longer simmer will equal a deeper depth of flavor, so let your stock simmer as long as you're able or willing for the best result. Wait until your onions have turned translucent and brown before adding a small can of tomato sauce, 2 tablespoons of ketchup, or 2 peeled tomatoes, and cook over low-medium heat for 15 to 20 minutes to concentrate the flavor. Strain your stock to remove the bones, bay leaves, cartilage, and foam from your stock. Add your simmered veggies from your pan and your prepped potatoes, beets, and cabbage to your pot, as well as 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, if desired, and simmer for 1 hour. Season by adding salt, pepper, vinegar, or other spices to taste. Serve with a dollop of sour cream, plain yogurt, or mayonnaise, depending on your preferred topping, then add parsley over the top for garnish.
Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and let me know if there's anything else like this you'd like me to do in the future, recipes from a particular country, anything like that. Go ahead and put that down in the comments below. And like I told y'all last week, I'm still working on setting up the social media pages for this channel. Instagram in particular is really fighting me on getting the email, the phone number for the account verified, so I'm going to continue to battle that, but I will get that up to y'all as soon as I do, and hopefully I'll be able to tell that to you in the next video. So be sure to like, subscribe if you haven't already, share it if you want, and I'll see you in the next video.